This might sound a little unhinged, but I love when stuff goes wrong in my business. Hear me out here. I don't love inconvenience. Anybody who knows me knows I don't love inconvenience, of course, right? And this isn't because I love problems or want them either. And it's definitely not because I'm sitting around hoping that a client issue pops up or something slips through the cracks or a process breaks down and like totally eats my afternoon, right? I don't love the interruption itself, but I love what's on the other side of things like this, right? Because every single time something goes wrong in a business, it's going to tell me something super valuable. It's going to show me where something is too loose or like too dependent on memory and our own cognitive capabilities, or if it's too emotionally driven, if it's too inconsistent, if it's not clear enough, or if it's something that's just like missing altogether. And this gives me a trail to follow. Yeah, this gives me a great trail. This is going to point me exactly to where I need to be to start refining the process. And that is so incredibly useful. Most people and massage therapists experience business problems as proof that something is like broken or like not going right with them, right? They'll often assume, and tell me in the comments if this sounds relatable to you, they'll assume that the problem means they're failing, they're behind, they're sloppy, they're not like cut out for it. Um, or maybe like they're not organized enough or smart enough or disciplined enough. But over the years, I've trained myself and I want to help train you to look at your business problems differently. I don't see them as personal flaws, okay? I see these very specifically and exclusively as diagnostic tools. And that changes everything. Because if every problem is personal, which is so easy to do as massage therapists because we pour our lifeblood into our practice, right? But if every problem is personal, every problem is going to feel really heavy and insurmountable and just it's going to send you into a spiral. All of it's going to feel really emotional and all of them are going to chip away at your confidence. But if you reframe and start to perceive every problem in your business as information, now you've got something you can work with. Now you can get curious instead of feeling ashamed or go into an imposter syndrome spiral. You can fix something at the root of it instead of just reaching the surface level symptom. And that's really what we want to do with our clients too, right? So I want you to see the parallels here. So this is especially important for massage therapists and other service providers because a lot of us were trained just to rely on ourselves. I see that all the time. Our hands, our intuition, our memory, work ethic, and our ability just to hold it all together. Sound relatable? I know it does. So when something breaks down in the business, our instinct is often just to compensate harder, right? To work harder, to remember more, to try to be better. But that gets really fucking exhausting really fast. Ask me how I know. So in this video, I want to walk you through what I mean when I say that everything that goes wrong in a business can be traced back to a system problem. I'm going to give you some examples, make it relatable, and show you why this perspective shift is such a game changer if you want a business that feels lighter, more sustainable, and more peaceful. So first and foremost, I want to point out that most of us massage entrepreneurs dramatically underestimate how much stress they're currently carrying just because they don't have symptoms, right? A lot of us are out here thinking that we're stressed because we've got a lot of shit to do. We think we're stressed because clients are unpredictable, because social media is annoying, because people cancel, because life is chaotic, because everything is hard and expensive. And sure, all of those things can contribute, right? Of course. But a huge amount of day to day stress in business comes from preventable friction. So when there's no system, everything's got to be decided every single time in real time. Every client interaction requires fresh energy from you. Every problem has to be solved from scratch. Every task lives in your head, right? And every breakdown feels like an emergency because there's no structure holding anything in place. You're not just doing the work of the business, but you're also carrying this invisible load of remembering, monitoring, compensating, worrying, and trying not to let anything fall apart all at the same time. So that's why I get really excited when something goes wrong, because I know I've just found one of those friction points. I found one of the places where my business is still asking too much of me, and it's still relying too heavily on my brain, energy, attention, or my emotional availability. And once I can identify that and really hone in, I can remove that burden and I can start to build something better. So a system, in the most simple terms, is just a way of making something more consistent, less emotionally expensive, and less dependent on you having to reinvent the wheel every single time. It does not have to be complicated, and I beg of you, any system you decide to create or implement, don't make it complicated. It doesn't have to be corporate. It does not have to be cold or robotic. It just has to support the outcome you want in a really clean and reliable way, right? So once you start to see your business through that lens, problems aren't just like random punishments from the universe, but they're clues. You stop spiraling so much and you start troubleshooting. You stop making everything mean something about your worth and you start asking better questions. Not stuff like, why does this always happen to me? But instead, what is this showing me about the current structure of my business? I think this is incredibly important for massage therapists, especially because our work is so personal, like I mentioned earlier. We are the service. People book us, they trust us with their bodies. They often tell us really personal things. They come back because of how we make them feel. So, when something in the business feels off, it's really easy to start to assume it's a reflection of us as a person or as a practitioner. So, like if a client doesn't rebook, we can make that mean that we weren't good enough. If someone cancels, we make that mean they don't value us, amongst so many other different types of stories, right? And I'm sure some of this is relatable for you as well. And if business is inconsistent, we can make it mean that we're just bad at business altogether. I hear that all the time. If we're feeling scattered or we're feeling tired, God forbid, we can make that mean we're just like failing at entrepreneurship, which is devastating. Come on. And because so many self employed massage therapists work alone, there's often nobody around to interrupt that story. So it just continues in this validation cycle. So many of these things have hardly anything to do with your worth or talent and everything to do with the structures around your work. A client not rebooking might not be about the quality of the massage at all. It might be about the way rebooking is framed, the lack of a follow up process, the absence of client education, or the fact that there's just no retention system in place. And it can be really easy to not see those things when we're in our business every day, right? An inconsistent month might not mean you suddenly forgot how to run a business, okay? It might just mean that your business relies too much on random bursts of effort instead of repeatable processes. So, this is one of the infinite reasons I care so much about helping therapists like you think differently. Because when you personalize every business problem and you make it about you create so much unnecessary suffering. You end up carrying shame that does not belong to you. You waste energy trying to fix yourself when what actually needs fixing is the framework around you. And honestly, when you've been in business for a while and you've been white knuckling everything and doing it all yourself, you might not even realize how much you're compensating or how much harder you're working than you need to. Right? It just starts to feel like normal to constantly be on. It starts to feel normal to have to remember everything, to answer messages at really weird hours, to scramble when there's a gap in the schedule, and to feel a little bit of a panic every time something is shifting. And just because it feels normal for you doesn't mean it's sustainable, right? Definitely not. So, this is why this conversation is so powerful because it moves us out of self blame and into a sense of self leadership. It's going to help you understand that becoming more supported in business is not an optional luxury, it's part of building something that works for you. So, for example, let's start with some examples. So, a really common one, no shows, late cancels, and those moments where your boundaries feel kind of weird, wobbly, or like hard to enforce, yeah? So, a lot of us experience those moments as proof that clients are inconsiderate, they're flaky, disrespectful, or impossible to manage. I have heard it all. And sometimes, yes, of course, people are human and messy and inconvenient and terrible. Okay? That's part of working with the public. But if this is happening with any kind of frequency, and I don't necessarily mean pattern, I mean frequency, then it's almost never just a people problem. It is a system problem, okay? Usually there's something in the business structure that's leaving way too much room for confusion, for avoidance, or inconsistency. Maybe the cancellation policy you have is out there, it exists, but it's buried somewhere and it's not communicated very clearly. And this comes down to some mindset stuff too, right? If you feel embarrassed or shy or aggressive about sharing your cancellation policy, this will come back to bite you in the ass. And then it's going to perpetuate and prove that cycle, right? You see where I'm going with this? So maybe clients click through your cancellation policy without really absorbing it. And maybe you feel bad enforcing it, so the actual practice of your business doesn't match the written rules. Maybe there's no automated reminder structure. Maybe there's no card on file. Maybe the language around your policies feels like optional or apologetic. And this is where all this stuff gets so helpful. Instead of just getting really annoyed over and over and over again, which I totally used to do, I want you to start to ask yourself, what would make this feel more clean? What would make it easier to uphold? And what would reduce the likelihood of this happening ever again? Maybe the answer for you is stronger onboarding or clearer appointment reminders, maybe tightening up the booking flow or shifting the way you talk about your time and your policies so your clients feel that you mean it. It doesn't really matter how you decide to take action on this, but what's really important is that you stop relying on emotion in the moment. This is where your systems come in. Because when there's no solid system, every late cancellation becomes a moral dilemma, right? You're all in your feelings, you're trying to read the situation, you're deciding case by case. Stop that. And it gets fucking exhausting. A good system removes a lot, if not all, of that drama. Not to mention all the mindset stuff, right? It lets the business hold the boundaries so you don't have to generate all that energy from scratch every single time. This doesn't make you an asshole, okay? It just means that you're resourceful and it makes your business more trustworthy. Clarity is so necessary. All of this is kind to your clients. And the more stable your boundaries become, the less resentment you're going to carry. So that's one example. Another example is like burnout and schedule exhaustion, right? So let's talk about it because this is such a big one in the massage industry. A lot of us think burnout is just the result of doing too much physical work. And yeah, it's physical, of course. It asks a ton of your body. But burnout is rarely just about the body. It's also about business design. So a lot of us are operating inside schedules that were built sort of by default as opposed to intention. I wonder if that relates to you. Do you resonate with that? A lot of us are working hours. We assume we have to work, right? If the thought of taking off a Saturday or taking Saturdays off your schedule altogether just makes you want to have a panic attack, this is for you, right? Some of us are like accepting time spots that we absolutely hate. We leave no buffer. We don't take a lunch break. We stack these sessions back to back to back. And this isn't just an issue with your workload, right? Like always, this can be traced back to a systems issue and a capacity system problem. It's a scheduling system problem, boundaries, pricing. Because if your rates are too low, you have to overfill the schedule just to make the numbers work. Do you see how all of this stuff has to interact and behave with each other, right? So what I want you to understand is that burnout is data. If your business It's your business showing you that the current structure is too expensive, that the way you're working, the way you're booking, or spacing out your days, or making choices, or the way your income is set up is costing you too much. And instead of treating that like a personal failure, you can treat it like a design issue. And that's a different conversation. So this is a huge part of the work. Building a business that supports your body, your energy, your lifestyle, and your actual human capacity instead of constantly demanding more from you than you have to give, right? So this is all stuff I really want you to absorb and to really deeply understand. And one of the reasons I love this perspective so much is because it's really regulating. It helps take something that feels emotional and it makes it really actionable. It puts you back in the driver's seat instead of your feelings and your gremlins and your fears and your bullshit, right? It takes something that feels really personal and it makes it practical. It's not going to get rid of any frustration for business problems, of course, but it's going to give that frustration and that energy somewhere useful to go instead of just spiraling and creating default patterns that just validate the same problem all over again. But when you don't have this lens, problems feel like attacks on your identity all day long. A cancellation becomes like, I'm not stable enough. A quiet week becomes, I'm like really bad at this. A really messy new modality launch or whatever becomes, I don't need to be chasing bigger things, right? So when you train yourself to ask systems questions, you create space between the event and the story. You stop fusing with the problem so completely, and you stop making instant meaning out of everything. You can feel annoyed, disappointed, or tired, and still stay grounded enough to say, okay, what is this actually showing me? And this is such a different way to move through business, and nobody's fucking talking about it, right? But this creates more steadiness, more agency, maturity, self trust. Because now your confidence is not built on everything going right, because that ain't going to happen, but instead it's built on your ability to respond really intelligently when things don't go perfectly. And this is the kind of confidence I care about and I want you to diligently cultivate. Not like fragile temperamental confidence that disappears the second something goes wrong, right? But like real deep confidence, the kind that can hold complexity and subtlety, the kind that can troubleshoot, and the kind that knows that problems are not proof that your dream is broken. So this is also why systems and nervous system work go so well together, because when your system is overwhelmed, everything's going to feel so much more loud and aggressive, right? More urgent, threatening. And when your business has no structure, your nervous system has even more shit to carry, right? It becomes like this nasty feedback loop. So the more support you build into the business, the easier it becomes to stay grounded. And the more grounded you are, the better systems you can build. So I think, just to sort of wrap this up, I think one of the biggest lies as that we are told as entrepreneurs is that if something's not working, you probably just need to try harder. More effort, more grit, more hours, more discipline, whatever, right? But this keeps people trapped for years because it doesn't ask whether the actual structure of the business is sound. More hustle and harder work and more hours inside a system that's already broken is going to create faster burnout. Exhibit A. Okay? More effort in the past, not right now. More effort inside a really messy process is just going to create more mess, right? This is why so many smart, hardworking therapists stay stuck. It's not because you're like a lazy POS, right? It's because you're pouring yourself into a business that asks you to overfunction. So, the missing piece here is really often support, community, proximity to someone who can help you see what you can't see when you're in the middle of it. Because when you're alone in your business, it's really easy to normalize dysfunction. Think about your clients who are normalizing pain all the time because they're in their own echo chamber, right? It's easy to think your chaos is just part of the deal. It's easy to assume everyone feels this fried and scattered and unsure. But when you are in the right room, with the right framework, with the right lens, things click so much faster. This all starts to become real. You realize what you thought was a personality problem or something deeply flawed within you is often just an issue with your structure and your business. What you thought was like undeniable proof that you're failing is often just breadcrumbs on the trail, evidence that a part of your business is ready to be refined. What a beautiful thing. This is a way more empowering place to work from, and it opens up better decisions, more energy, better systems, and outcomes too, right? So this is one of many reasons, the Balanced Biz community exists in the first place, because so many therapists are out here trying to solve business problems in isolation with no clear framework, no bigger picture, and no support around the deeper patterns underneath what's happening. So in the 12-week community, we're not just like throwing strategies at you and hoping something sticks. Okay, you've been there, you've done that. Let's maybe not do that. But instead, we're looking at the business as a whole. The way your schedule is built, the way your offers are structured, the way your messaging is landing, the way your boundaries are held, the way your energy is being spent, the way your nervous system interacts with your decision making every day, and the way your business either supports your life or is just kind of in the background, just draining it. Businesses are holistic, and that's why this is so important. They work a lot more like bodies than most of us realize. So just pay attention to that in your everyday life. If something's hurting, right, in your body, it's rarely just one isolated issue floating in a vacuum. There's patterns, there's compensations, there's root causes, there's interconnected systems. And the more holistically you learn to assess your business, the less you stay stuck playing whack-a-mole with random symptoms. So this community and the support that I help provide gives you what you need to provide to create those foundations in a way that's actually really functional. And it's not theoretical conceptual stuff, right? It's not fluffy bullshit. It's not one size fits all. It's going to give you a lens, a structure, and a set of tested frameworks that you can apply to your real life business. And just as importantly, it's going to give you support while you do it so you're not left alone trying to translate everything from scratch. And I really think that support piece matters more than you realize, because sometimes the breakthrough is not just like learning a concept or absorbing another idea. It's having someone on the other side say, I can see where this is leaking energy for you. Or, like, this isn't just some random thing, this is actually a part of your structure. Or, you don't have to carry this part with your nervous system anymore. And that's where sustainable change really happens. So whether the thing you need is more systems or perspective or community or frameworks, all of that is part of this work, and it's all part of building a business that feels way more balanced, sustainable, and aligned with the life you actually want. So when I say I love something goes wrong in my business, what I really mean is I love having the chance to see more clearly. I love spotting the places where the business is still too dependent on stress, memory, urgency, perfectionism, or overfunctioning. I love finding those hidden friction points. I love getting evidence of what wants to be tightened or simplified or clarified, automated, communicated better, or just eliminated, right? Because every time I refine something, the business gets lighter and easier to run. And that's what I want you to experience. Not just more money or more clients or outward success, but like really deep, lasting internal ease, more steadiness and support, and more trust in the business you're building. More moments where you realize you don't have to keep carrying everything the fucking hard way. So if your business has been feeling heavier than it needs to feel, more chaotic than it needs to feel, more emotionally expensive than it needs to feel, there's a really good chance that what you're dealing with is not a spontaneous random thing. It's not just part of the game. It's probably showing you where a system is ready to be built. And that's great news, right? Because systems can be improved, structures can be redesigned, and support can be added. Clarity can be found. You're not stuck with the current version of your business. I want you to really hear that. So the next time something goes wrong, instead of immediately spiraling or making it mean something terrible about who you are as a person, try asking a different question. What is this showing me? Where is the system gap? And what would make this more clean, more light, more simple, more supported next time? Because even just that question might change the entire way you run your business. And if you're interested in learning more about how I can help you get out of this cycle permanently and to really start building a business that makes sense on your terms and helps to create the life that you really want, I would love to chat with you. So do that little exercise. Start flipping that question and reframing all of this. And I can't wait to hear what you took from this video.